I hear stories which are, my kid now knows what a water heater is and they talk about it. They're like, we're out in the restaurant and my son goes, oh, look, a thermostat. That's what it was for. It was to introduce them to the industry, to get these words in front of them in a setting that now when they get out into the real world, they've now changed that perception a little bit about what this is and who these people are. That's where I really cut my teeth. So literally being the guy at the counter, taking the phone calls, I didn't know anything, right? I got all these tricks played on me. Yeah, I need a bucket of steam. Give me a price for that. And I'm like trying to look it up frantically in the system. I'm like, wait, you can't get a bucket of steam. What am I doing, right? When I realized when I could help a small business be successful because of the work I was doing for them at that level, that's when it sort of clicked for me.
Hola, what is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Reliable Trades podcast. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, make sure you subscribe and you like this video. And if you're listening to this on the audio over on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or any other platform, please leave a review. That's all free and it helps support the show and helps it get out to more people. And of course, I'm your host, Adrian Garcia. I am an HVAC technician, licensed contractor here in Texas, and I've been doing this about 18 years. And we just have a lot of good conversations with good people in different trades now, whether it's HVAC, plumbing, electrical. I've had some others in like auto mechanics, anything like that. You bring them on, have a good conversation, and hopefully get more trade awareness out there. So I appreciate everybody who's watched or listened, all the support and making this podcast successful and what it is now. I also want to thank the sponsors of the show, like Jobber, which is a CRM that we use to run our business, which is invoicing, quoting, scheduling jobs, maintenance contracts. It makes it so easy, and all our technicians on our team usually pick it up relatively quickly. I just have to show them what it is and they are able to get out there and start, invoicing everything that needs to be done. I can also update prices, client list, everything remotely, and they have it there on their phone, tablet, or laptop. It's been great running our business with Jobber now, and if you guys want a free trial and discount, make sure to check the link down below, getjobber.com/reliable HVACR. I also want to thank Vito Pro Pack, the best quality bags that money can buy, literally. Spring promotion is the best time of year by far. So check out Vito Pro Pack at your supply house or go to vitopropack.com to learn more. And the podcast is also brought to you by Local. Local HQ is a marketing that is geared towards the trades, and they can help you with your HVAC digital marketing so that you can dominate your local service areas with proven strategies that get your business more leads. They can help you rank higher on Google and all that you would need for your business. So reach out to Local at localhq.com/reliable and mention me or the Reliable Trades podcast and get 2 months of SEO for free. Ryan, welcome to the show. I appreciate you taking the time to sit down. How are you?
I'm great. Adrian, thanks for having me. I can't wait to talk to you today.
I'm pretty stoked about this too. Can you just give us a quick intro as to like who you are, and then I think tell us about the books. We can get into that right away.
Absolutely. Yeah. So first of all, I'm a happy participant in the HVAC and plumbing industry for about 15 years. I've had the pleasure of working in wholesale along with manufacturing. Today, I'm happily employed by a manufacturer. But what I've always found very curious about our industry is the people that do this work every day. And that's who I really gravitate towards, both interacting with, talking to, and understanding both the challenges that they have in the field and what that is like. I come from a blue collar area, a blue collar background with my brother-in-law being a master plumber. Some of my closest friends in the entire world are from the skilled trades. That's really where I've just felt so compelled. And then why did I feel so compelled? Well, I felt like someone had to tell their story. Their story being, how do we appreciate these technicians that do a lot of work that most people don't want to do or don't understand how important it is to do. Today, it's important to know about air conditioning and heating and cooling because of the comfort that it brings. And also, obviously water as well for the safety that it brings. These are not just things that are nice to have. These are necessities, and people, especially in the United States, require these. And so, I felt like somebody wasn't telling their story, and these everyday heroes, these technicians that get this work done. And so that's why I really took it upon myself to write the Next Up Trade series, which is book two currently out, both about air conditioning and then also one
Hmm.
about plumbing, to really highlight those technicians and celebrate them.
That's awesome, man. So you started with, well, let me go ahead and change this real quick. You started with the water that came to a stop. So
Yeah.
that's what I was wondering about. So you have, or why did you go with plumbing first? Is that what you're doing? Is that what you did? Is that, why was that one first? And then I know we have another book that we can cover as far as like
Yes, of course.
HVAC.
Yeah, it's funny because when I first sat down, so the whole idea came about 5 years ago, and I know it's crazy to think, wow, but it's taken to this point. But 5 years, the idea hit me. I study a lot of what's going on in our industry. I think all of us know the workforce shortage, the issues that we have there. The numbers are aghast. I mean, for every 20 jobs we need to fill, we're filling one person. As I call them, the graybeards, which now I happen to be one of those, and
I was gonna
others
say
are.
I feel like one of those now too.
Right. Yeah. So, but those graybeards are retiring out. And so, when I looked around and I said, I think there's a story here to be told, it was always in my mind to be plumbing, HVAC, and electrical. And the idea, because
Okay.
all three of those skilled trades, depending what part of the country you're in, may overlap. So in the Northeast where I happen to live and been, really cut my teeth in this industry, saw that, a lot of the plumbers happen to also do some HVAC or maybe also happen to do electrical. There's, so in my mind there was sort of that synergy between all three stories. So to start with plumbing was probably the easiest lift for me, both from a background that I had with the manufacturing side, but also because my brother-in-law is a master plumber in New
Hmm.
Jersey, right? So there's that. He's a two-man operation. He owns the company, and so knowing what he goes through every day and understanding what value he brings, that's kind of where I started from. And probably the thing I'd also say is these stories, when you look at the plots, what actually caused the problem. The children caused these problems. And so the first book was inspired by something one of my kids actually happened to do, which was, without ruining the plot, but you can see it on the cover there, they shut off the main water valve in our house.
Mm.
So, but kids can be inspiration. And that's how I came up with the plumbing side first. And it's so funny when you look at these stories because the kids, both of my kids, they kind of realize, like, wait, Dad, you wrote about me. I did that. I
Yeah.
was the one that had turned off the air conditioning. And we
Yeah,
needed to fix it.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say because the other day we noticed our thermostat had been moved all the way up, and we're like, "Who did that?" The kids were playing in the hallway.
Yes, I hate to say it's such a common thing, but it's because these thermostats they're so enticing to 6 to 8 year olds, like my two boys are at this time, and they're built to be flashy and have different
Oh
controls,
yeah.
and so I get it, but that really was the inspiration behind the plot. Anyways, like, but yeah, that's why I started with the books that I did. I always had in my mind it's about MEP, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing.
So you wrote these yourself, and then I think you had said you got like a, oh yeah, illustrator by Lana Lee. They look
Yes,
really nice, man. Cause like I buy my
thank you.
kids books sometimes, at the store. They were really into like what is it, like Pete the Cat, and this is kind of that style of what, I don't know, what draws interest in my kids. This is basically what it is. So I actually had to retrieve these because my daughter had taken them the other day. So
Oh.
I had to get these back so I can have them for the show.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, look, I mean, the comments I'd say about that is whenever you write a book, and it's a lot, for any project you start, you need a team. I mean, honestly,
Yeah.
so it was great to have the idea, but like a lot of good things, you have to execute those ideas. So to do that, you have to think to yourself, where are you going to be good? Where are you not going to be strong? And so luckily I had the ability to write these books. I'm a pretty good writer, but I'll be honest, my wife is probably the best editor that I wish I didn't have, because it was about 30 rounds of edits from her on both
Yep.
books. She made these things shine and really just pulled out the story in them. So between her editing those books and then finding really the key players to help make this book a reality, like the illustrator, as you mentioned, Lana Lee, which is a fantastic illustrator for hire on Fiverr.com, believe it or not. So a
Okay.
outsourced gig economy type setup, and really good at what she does. And to your point, I was looking for a certain style, something that was a little different but could really pop off the page, and that was why I selected it. And honestly, too, when you think about constructing a book and these ideas, you have to think about the audience you're writing for, which is in this case 4 to 10 year olds. And so you have to think about what are things they care about, what are things they think about, And a lot of research was done there. Before I really put pen to paper, things like the first book mentions pizza. Of course, kids
Yeah.
love pizza in hindsight, but
Well,
add that stuff in.
I was gonna say, just you say it's for that age group, younger kids under 10 and stuff, but you still have to do research. You still have to do your homework on that, because it's not super easy to write. To me, as an adult trying to write something for a kid, because you got to play into what draws them, what they're interested in, and what keeps them interested in it, especially.
Yeah, and it's funny because I never thought I'd be a children's book author, but again, an idea happened, and I said I can make an impact on our industry, and so I just kept going. Every stop, I'm like, should I stop at this point? It's been a lot of work. No, keep going, and I had a lot of support around me. Personal mentors, obviously my family. People that I even gave like the readings to get them sort of interested, and I said, you know what, this can have an impact, and I just kept going. And it's like anything in life. If you have an idea, finish it, and you never know where it can go. But every step along the way, I made it a little better. And that's why I think, to be honest, I think the books look great, they sound great, and they just come out. But it was hours and hours of work. I wouldn't recommend it if you don't have the effort behind you or the team. But in hindsight, I'm glad I did it. But man, it was a lot.
You you don't realize how much work goes into doing these kinds of things, because like I can imagine, like you said, it took you said like 5 years to kind of go from beginning to actually having this out, and
Yeah.
not a lot of people would want to stick that out, but it's a lot of work.
Yeah, it always sounds a lot easier than what it is, no matter what it
Oh
is,
yeah,
whether
I'm
you're
just
buying
gonna
it.
write
Yeah.
a book, turn it in, and yeah, we're done. It's not that easy.
Now, and Adrian, you would know too, being in the podcast space a little bit, and a lot of the side work in addition to your day job, right? Like there's it's those
Oh
early
yeah.
mornings, late nights. Like you're in the creative space too, and thinking about what's going to be interesting to your listeners, and that's the same kind of mentality you have to put behind for these, for at least in this case, a children's book, and it's
Well,
it's very
like,
similar.
so you went through, like you said, you handed out, what was it, test reads to your family and friends probably, and got feedback, and I'm sure you had many changes that you had to make. And did you get a lot of kids to test this too?
I did, yeah. So that was part of it. I wanted to know if the story made sense, if like
Okay.
the word choices made sense. Because again, I mean, some of the words that we have in our industry are not necessarily everyday words. I mean, I chose kind of a mix of things like vent, things that are maybe a little easier. Duct work is actually a more funny one because again, they think it's literally a duck,
Yeah.
right? But it's not. But duct work, and then I chose to put in a little bit of those harder words like thermostat, like capacitor, to kind of expand their knowledge. Adrian, the best part of any of these books, right, other than sort of the doing things like this interview and talking about it, is when kids read it, and then I hear stories which are, my kid now knows what a water heater is, and they talk about it. They're like, we're out in the restaurant, and my son goes, "Oh, look, a thermostat." That's what it was for. It was to introduce them to the industry, to get these words in front of them in a setting that now, when they get out into the real world, they've now changed that perception a little bit about what this is and who these people are.
I am 100% behind that, because in today's age, and I just had a uh, another recording where we were talking about like trying to intervene with our kids as far as like what they're watching, what they're looking at, because nowadays, you know how kids are, they mimic everything, right? So if they see something, then they want to act like that. And I would like to show them more of like, doing things around the house, fixing things, stuff like that, but also getting out, doing other things. So anything that helps with getting them off that endless like scrolling on social media, is a big deal for me. And that's awesome, because that's a big thing that I always say when I talk about when I got into the trades. I went to a community college for HVAC, and I'm like, you don't need it, but it helped me with the lingo. It helped me,
Yeah.
understand terms and certain practices and stuff like that. So if a kid, 10-year old, 8-year old, whatever it is, knows what a thermostat and a capacitor is, that's a huge head start, and they can actually know, hey, this is a cool thing, right? The trades. Maybe I want to
Yeah.
do this when I'm older.
It's a shame. I mean, look, I know a lot have talked about this between, the most famous spokesperson for us, I still think, is Mike Rowe, but, there's more people growing there. But, I think the challenge is these words aren't introduced in movies. They're not introduced in your videos you're talking about on YouTube. They're not
You know,
introduced in the
the
day to
most famous thing is Bruce Willis going through a attic ductwork trying to
day.
sneak into, but that's the most that you'll see about it. You don't hear all this other stuff. You see a lot of HVAC technicians pointing out like the mistakes and stuff in the movies about like AC work and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, you don't hear any of those terms.
No, and I'll tell you the other thing too is so now that my kids have read these books and they understand what dad does a little bit, so
Hmm.
whenever we need people to come over, plumber, air conditioning, furnace repair, right? It's funny because they sort of gravitate towards that. They run to the door and they're just like, "Wow, you're here to help us, great!" And then when the work's done, they're like, "Thank you so much, we're so happy." It's like that's what it's about. Like the kids, because they don't know any different. To your point, like they're a product of your environment. They're gonna absorb what you show them or allow them to see.
Hmm.
And when you introduce something like this, when that stage comes in middle school and high school, when they're talking career, when they're thinking about that choice, now we have a chance to get them into the skilled trades a little bit because they're not thinking of it. Maybe they're not having not been exposed to it. The other thing I'd say, quick, Adrian, too, is the parents, like the people that read these books on the test run, all of them said the same thing. They're like, man, it is hard to get a plumber. It is hard to get an HVAC tech. So maybe like showing my kids that isn't such a bad thing. Maybe I'm part of the problem as the parent, right? Where I only push them down towards a certain path, like 4-year college.
Yeah.
So it's not just for these kids. These books are really for someone that has an open mind to job exploration and wants to show their kids everything. That's what these things can help with.
I also want to thank Diversitech. They simplify your work. They have everything a contractor needs to complete a job. That goes from equipment mounting, condensate, management, tools, maintenance chemicals, electrical components, indoor air quality, and much more. They have different branches under the same umbrella. More than likely, you're already using some of their products or tools. So go check out diversitech.com, and it's your one-stop shop for everything HVAC. I've gotten a lot of compliments on these line set penetration covers. They're basically, when you get an install done, you have the line set coming out the house or whatever a wall you came out of. You normally have to put like foam spray or cover it up somehow. Eric's has these covers that just look professional, and I like the form factor. I've seen others and they're a little bit too bulky. This one, it just gives you what you need. They have two different models. If you need a slimmer one, they have that too. And what I really like is they finally have now one for existing line sets. Now it's two pieces and you kind of just put them together over the line set and then mount it and drill it in. And it's a good selling point to make an existing install look better. I've gotten so many compliments, like I said. So make sure you go over to ericsmfg.com and check them out. I love seeing it because trade awareness has been on my mind a lot lately, just trying to get it out there. And, whether it's getting it out to kids like you're doing, which is great, getting it out to now, we're talking about parents and older people that can, what do you call it? Kind of help get, whether it's their kids or their relatives or, people they know, kind of motivate or encourage them to do something in the trades. That would be great too. We had a birthday party that we went to a month ago or something like that, and it was my girlfriend's family, their party, and one of her cousins came up to me and she's like, "You're the only one that I know that does AC work." So she had questions because, and I'm an open book when someone starts asking me like HVAC questions. So I got kind of
Yeah.
excited there, and their kid who's in middle school said they wanted to be an AC technician, and that's where the
Great.
interest was. And then they're like, "How is it? This and that." They had questions for it, and I was like, "That's cool," because I've never heard of that. I've never heard of a kid that wants to be, in the trade. So that was really cool to see, and I hope, going forward, they can understand that that is a great career, an option, because there's certain people that are like us. I can't sit still. I can't, I can't be at a desk every day. I like being out. I'm an outdoor person, stuff like that. So I started in the HVAC, and of course, it's a job. I mean, I was a kid. I was like 20. I just
Yep.
want my check and go home. But I learned to love it because challenging, outdoors, traveling, something different. That it was all the things that kind of checked all the boxes for me.
Yeah. Adrian, so I want, if you don't mind, I want to ask you a question about that because I
Go
also,
ahead.
like you, I get some of those same requests in my neighborhood that it's like, hey, something's happening with my water heater. Can you come over and look at it? Now, again, just full disclosure, like I've not turned wrenches in the field like you guys, right? I've only worked
Okay.
above the contractor level, but I know enough about that space being at the manufacturing level and also the wholesale level that I can look at something and say, here's what I would do and I can recommend. But when I go into those situations, I feel so happy that I can help people. Like if
Hmm.
it's my neighbor, it's whatever. And my question to you is, could you describe like that kid in that situation at the birthday party and how that made you feel as a mentor in that moment, right? Like how did you feel telling like this is what I do every day? By the way, probably not all great. I get it. No job is all great, but
No.
there's probably a little bit more of better than not good. So I mean, how'd that make you feel?
See that's like I said earlier, I can talk about my work. I can talk someone's ear off about my work. Like I love it that much, right? So when I know somebody's that interested, and especially a kid, because I've even had it with my kids, where I have an 11 and a 9-year old. Now my 11-year-old son, not so much. He's more into video games, trying to like steer him, to see what else he's interested in. And our 9-year-old daughter has been interested in what I do. So anytime that happens, or at that party when they ask me about it, I get excited. I get I perk up. Like I was just there minding my own business, but I perked up, and I get it makes me feel good because that's you know the trades has always been looked down upon.
Yeah.
And in the past, when I started, maybe me saying I'm in the trades, or I do HVAC or whatever it is, people would look at you a funny way or be like, oh, like, that's horrible or whatever, right? Now
Yeah.
it's not so bad, and I can actually talk about it more, and people get excited for it. So then I get excited. So it makes me feel really good, especially in that situation that kid in middle school wants to do this later. And I was like, look, I can give you all the information you need to, like all these YouTube channels, all this literature, whatever you want. Like I want more people to know about the trade. So I got super excited about it. And our daughter, when I'm cleaning my van out, when I'm getting ready for the week, she goes in there and she's playing with the screwdrivers and tools, and she's trying to pretend that she's fixing something,
Yeah.
and she gets kind of excited for it. So like that makes me feel good. And my son needs a little motivation, so he's asking about, right now he wants like money and stuff. He's getting older. I'm like,
Yeah.
you can make a lot of money if you come work for, because I work with my dad. So I'm like, you can work for me and your grandpa, and you can make a whole bunch of money there. So now he's
Yeah.
interested in it.
Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah, it's funny because, and I asked that question because I kind of knew the answer, which was it made you feel good, right? But it's so important to hear that from people that are in the field and then telling others about it because, it's like anything. Imagine if somebody cares or is asking you a question about something you really know about. It doesn't matter if it's your skilled trade or whatever. You're going to want to share that because you just feel like I can offer them something, even if it's a little bit of an anecdote, a little like insight on something. And I feel like, and you mentioned the financial part, I feel like a lot of, and this is another reason I wrote these books too, is because I just always felt like everyone talks about like, you can make a lot of money, less debt, right? Which is great. That is true with our industry. I want everybody to make a ton of money. I'm a capitalist. I
Hmm.
love it, right? But we just neglect the fact that this work, when you're done with it, can actually make that person feel great that you fixed their problem. Now, I'm not saying that's every time. I get it. You guys go in 100-degree, attics. Like
No,
it's
and
hard.
yeah, there's
Trust me, like,
frustrating days. Yeah, for sure.
totally. Like I'm not glossing over that. But the fact is that most of the time, for most technicians or people in the field, when you get a chance to solve that problem, and at the end of it, that person goes, "Thank you," and maybe again, hopefully they're not fighting you on the price of the invoice and all that stuff, 'cause that happens. But
Yeah.
when the good examples, someone that's in the middle school age and high school age that looks at that and goes, I want to make a difference in somebody's life pretty much multiple times a day, potentially by fixing their problems. This is a really good shot to do that, to your point, versus sitting at a desk and answering emails and taking phone calls like that. It's not going to be as fulfilling or daily gratification like you get
Yeah.
from that day to day in the field.
And and that's why I get in trouble a lot because my dad's always like, "Have you done all the paperwork yet?" Because I got stuck with billing and invoicing, emailing. I got stuck with all of that stuff 18 years ago when we started. Like my dad's not good with computers, so I had to do all that kind of stuff. So I still do
Right.
it, and I get behind because I don't like sitting here at the desk doing it. I rather be out in the field. Like I get that
Yep.
gratification. A rewarding factor is what I always say is like, you go fix something, that's a reward factor, and they're
Yeah.
like incentives, and it makes you feel good. And that's a big thing for me too, because I deal with light commercial, I deal with a lot of restaurants, hospitals, stuff like that. Like that stuff is important. Now residential, you get a reward factor from a family that needs cooling in the summer, or they need heat in the winter, that kind of stuff. They have kids, there's all this stuff. You're the superhero basically, right?
Yep.
Now, in the commercial world, it's usually money driven because they have thousands and thousands of dollars of product right in a freezer or whatever, cooler, whatever it is that I'm working on. So they want you to fix it now because they're going to lose a ton of money on that, right? Or a
Yep.
hospital, right? That's a super important job to have when we work on the hospital stuff. And it has to be done, right away, and it has to be done right. And you get that reward factor when the customer thanks you a million times because
Yep.
either you fixed it right away, you did it, you showed up right away, you fixed it right away, or you came behind another company, which we do a lot too. We're a small family business. We only got like 4 people. We just hired our fifth, and
Yep.
we go around some of the bigger companies and fix things that they, don't do right or something like that. And there's different reasons for that, but like again, I'm just going back to the reward factor. Being able to fix something on the spot, help out a customer. That's one of the best feelings that you can have.
The best thing I think that happened in this industry happened, I hate to say it, during COVID, because
Oh
what
yeah.
happened in COVID was essential, right? That this terminology that this industry, plumbing, HVAC, right, things that, keep, in your case, commercial applications running, vaccinations,
Mhm.
food, server rooms, like all that
Oh,
stuff
we do
is
that
is
too.
yeah, and so what I love about that is, again, it's that point of, sure, like you're fixing maybe in the residential setting, you're fixing like that homeowner's problems, but if you go to the commercial setting, you're just as essential there as you are in the residential setting. And that
Hmm.
idea is so important to maybe that middle schooler you're talking about, is like, do you want to work in an industry that you know you're needed, like you're truly
Yeah.
needed for this? Because if we don't have this resolved, we won't be able to deliver those vaccines, the food, other those essential, food. You're thinking about food, shelter, all those big major things, not just comfort, which is still important and people will pay for that, but you're talking about the essential side as well.
Yeah, and I'm gonna go back to as far as the kids and what they can do later in life and being essential. Like that was important because during that time, like I felt like we were shielded, right? Like once everything shut down, we got a piece of paper that said we were essential and they needed us. So the restaurants, I think they're like around here. I know some places were different. I think California shut down for a little bit longer, but here in Texas, like they didn't care. They wanted to get back to opening the restaurant, at least for curbside, stuff like that. And we
Yep.
were there. It was nice because there was nobody out on the road. There was nobody in the restaurant. We had all the room in the world to work on these things, but we were still there. I was probably off for a few days and then I went back to work. Like there was no stoppage there for anybody in the trades, like electricians, plumbers, HVAC techs, any essential workers. Construction was still going on, all that kind of stuff. So there's that to look forward to, right? You tell a kid, what do you want to do later? Do you want to, and there's so much potential. So like what you were talking about earlier, like after, later on in life, if you are in this trade, there's so many other avenues you can take because if I like, I had a grocery store job before I did HVAC. That was the only other job I had.
Yeah.
And honestly, I was miserable there. I made decent money and it worked with the hours that I needed to because I was going to college too. But I was promised so many raises, right? You get those evaluations and all that every few months or 6 months, something
Yeah.
like that. And we were short staffed. A lot of the guys that I was supposed to be trained by, they plucked to do something else. I was running that grocery division of that store like by myself, making sure everything's stocked, making sure everything's thrown away and compacted, and like dealing with customers because we're by Mexico. So a lot of Mexican customers come over. I'm bilingual, trying to handle that part of it. Like they asked so
Sure.
much of me, and I kept getting shut down on raises. Like
Mm.
they said I wasn't doing enough and this and that. I'm like, are you kidding me? If you go into a trade, you learn a skill, you build on that skill, you're going to have opportunities to either move up in that company or go find somebody else. Like there's money to
Right.
be made in this industry. And
Yep.
I don't like, I've talked with the guys, like there's some guys that want to be the multimillionaire company, crazy big, they want all the headaches and stuff. That's fine. I'm on that smaller side, small business side, and I make good money, right? So
Yep.
I'm okay where we're at, being a small group. There's a lot of guys that are okay being a one man show. There's still money to be made. You don't have to be a huge company either. There's different avenues later on in life. If you want to just sell stuff, you want to work a counter, you want to get
Yep.
into sales or something else, you can do that. You don't always have to be in the field on the rooftop or doing that physical labor.
Yeah. Gosh, it's so true. Like you're getting into a little bit of that, like the philosophy of why do we work? Like we work for a lot of reasons. All of us do, and each one's different. Some might be, look, I earn, I want the prestige of the flexibility of generational wealth. I want, the financial aspect. Some people work for their families. Like I work for what I think is the quality of life that I want in this family.
Some let
Some
me
don't know, right?
Some people,
Yeah.
yeah, some people, and I've seen it. I know guys, like it's whatever. Some people want to go buy that Lamborghini, which is fine.
Yep.
That's what they enjoy, right? I just want money put away for my kids, and then for them to see me every week. So that's another important thing. And I've had the conversation with other small business owners. They value time, and I always tell people, your time is worth just as much or more than what you make, as your income, because
Mm.
I can get out early. I got all my weekends to do whatever I want with the kids. And anytime they need something, we go and I drop everything for that. I can
Yep.
do that because I work for myself. So there's that aspect too. You can be, if you get into the trades, you have the potential to run your own business and do your own thing. Like that's another thing.
That's so true. Exciting, man. Yeah, I love it. You're literally why I wrote the book, because like this story that you're talking about is so common across, I mean, the United States, and even like I'm blessed in my day job to deal with folks in Canada and now also Latin America. So like I have all the Americas under my day job. Believe it or not, I
Hmm.
don't write books just with my day job, but I wish I did, but I don't. But just like you don't run a podcast, full time.
I
You
was
have
gonna say I don't do this for my day job. I try to find time to do it in my free time. So I can imagine,
exactly
like you doing this is just the stuff that it's kind of like a hobby turned into a business, right? Like it's something you
yeah.
do for fun. It's interesting to you, and then you put in the work, you put in the hours, and then like something comes of it. So
That's
it's
right.
really cool. It's really cool to see.
Yeah, it's for you as well. Like I love both sides of the creative side. It's so great.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just like I've always had that creative, I guess, itch. So, like when we started our business, I was the guy doodling, designing. Like I did all that stuff for our business. We didn't have a logo or anything. My dad gave me, the name he wanted to name it, and then I had to go from there and make business cards, brochures. Like I was trying to figure out Photoshop and all that kind of stuff. So I've always done that stuff, and now I turned it into more things, with my brand and podcasting and all that.
Yeah. Well, congrats. No, seriously, I love the fact that you're taking that step. I can see the work you're putting in. I mean, all you have to do is go online and you see, some of the results you're getting, right? I mean, it's awesome. It's fantastic. And that works for you. And to your point, it kind of scratches your itch with, you know, broadcasting some of these messages between, fixing things. How do you do that? Or in this case, talking about the skilled trades as a positive thing. It's all part of the whole message. It's funny, about a week ago, I had a conversation at home, and I'm sure all of us do this at some point. And I said, my wife and I just started talking about this. We're like, legacy. Like, have
Mm,
you had sort of these conversations at some point? Again, you live for your family, you live for your home life and the quality of life you want. But like, then you also have to balance, like, what kind of legacy do you want in your career? And so you get a chance to kind of drive that. If you ever thought about that, I guess would be my question for you, Adrian. Like, have you ever thought about your legacy in our business, and what are you trying to do there? Have you ever thought about like the 20, 30 year spectrum, right? Like, it's a lot sometimes.
a little bit. I also want to thank our new sponsors, CallRail. So I've been more into marketing and just online presence with our business, even though we only do commercial. Word of mouth is really good for any business. But once you get to a place where you want to be, a big name online or just anywhere, be recognizable, like I said, online presence, have a nice website, be able to be searchable in Google and all these different search engines, and just have a big presence. You need to know where to spend your money. And all I'm going to say is that CallRail can help you track that if that's something that you're interested in. CallRail can tell you, hey, these are not working so much. These are working really good. Stop spending your money here. Put more money and effort into this. And just be smarter about what you spend. So make sure you go by callrail.com. They do have a no risk free trial and you can check it out for yourself. I also want to thank another new sponsor, Residio. Basically, they help with a sustainable home and they make it a safer, cleaner, and smarter home. They have so many things that work together. They were showing me the new thermostats that they have going on, how it's implemented together, and all these different little, smart devices that connect and talk to each other. So if you want to learn more, head over to residio.com and check it out for yourself. That's funny.
Yeah.
You remind me because I had that that came up in one of my episodes with, I want to say it was Lance from Solder World. And that dude is a great speaker too, but I think a legacy came up and I was like, man, like that's a powerful one. And
Yeah.
I need to incorporate that in more of my content. But legacy, like my whole thing is like, as of right now, because I am, as far as business goes, I'm trying to expand this year, trying to, take on people. And in that space, what I would like to do is because like I said, I'm okay being a small business. So what I want to do, like right now, we took on a guy that came from nursing. So like nothing to do with the trades, coming in, learning what we do. He's a quick learner. He loves it. Like he absolutely loves it. And to go from that kind of career to, being in the field with us, I feel like that's a big change. And, that's one person that we converted over and he's loving it. Right. So that's good to see.
Yeah.
Makes me feel good about that. As far as like other things that I've talked about, like with family, and I've had this conversation, so many times, like I want my kids to know that I was around. I want them to remember
Hmm.
family time. And that's something that I always go back to, putting myself, at their age. Like, what was I doing? What did I remember? Well, my
Yeah.
dad used to take us to school. So that was a big thing for me. My dad was an electrician and then he got into the food service stuff. And I might have been embarrassed at the time, but he would take us in that work van, to drop us off at school. But now I appreciate the time that he took to do that, right? Because he had to go to work.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of stuff that I want to leave for my kids is what I had with my dad. My dad, for as hard as he worked, you know, working hospital shifts sometimes and working overnight graveyard shifts and different things with different companies. And then when he made the move to food service industry, somebody offered him that job. Didn't know anything about it because he was just an electrician and had to learn a whole new world of equipment, right? He was
Yeah.
always getting on planes, going to these in-person trainings. So like I saw him leaving a lot, for weeks at a time. And he put in all that work, but we always remember he was always at our school, chaperoning or, at these events that, when they need like parent volunteers. First one, he was the first one to volunteer. He would take us to school. He was at all our sporting events. Those are the things that I remember and I loved. Now I'm trying to do that for my kids. That's what I want to leave behind, is like those memories, right? Those kinds of interactions and stuff like that. I could care less about anything else. It's just, I want that for my family. And then
Yeah.
if I want to take it a step further with, what I'm doing with the brand online, is just to give a kickstart to those next guys coming in. And I get a lot of messages and stuff like that about people like being motivated by my channel or whatever it is to get into the trade, or they just started and they wanted that kind of kickstart. And those are the things that I like, and why I keep doing the podcast and the YouTube and all the social media stuff that I do.
Yeah. Again, you're highlighting for me, like, what you didn't say was it's because, dad, made X amount of money and he gave us all these things, right? Instead, your answer was he was present, like it's
Yeah.
against an emotional, attachment, which to your point, like about legacy and this connection back to the folks that come in, that's the stuff you're probably going to, by the way, I'd also say the same for me. As you say all that, I'm just shaking my head going, yep, that's me too, man. Like I hear you. Cause I go, that's what I want. I want at the end of this, whenever that is, to go, did I make an impact to somebody in a good way? Whether, obviously the kids and my family, but in addition to others, can I look back and go, yeah, there was some of those moments. And if there was, that seems to be the success model for me. Not, how much money did I earn? How much, is my home worth? What's my net worth? And that's what we all kind of chase at times or think we should be chasing. But to your point,
Yeah.
like it's probably not. And one other comment I wanted to say, it's funny you mentioned your online brand. You mentioned about bringing people in. They love like your content. Reliable. The word itself, reliable, is like right. Like you're being reliable to others, and you're being reliable to like helping them, succeed. Never mind for your customers, but you're being reliable for people that they want to ask you a question that doesn't you're not, that's not a financial question or calculation.
Yeah.
It's, hey, I'm going to be reliable, I'll answer that question, I want to help you, dude. That's perfect. Like I can see the attraction that some would have to you, not just because of your content on the technical side, but because you have this open mind, you have this open door. It's great.
Oh yeah. As far as the open mind, like I've talked to so many people because I'll post about things that I'm doing, whether it's usually like work stuff that I work on, and someone, which Ty Brenneman, I don't know if you know who he is, but
Yeah.
uh,
Hmm.
he wanted to educate me on something, right? So then in the comments he was telling me about something that I did, and I'm like, okay, cool. Can you come on my podcast and educate me and my viewers, because I have an
Sure.
open mind with all of that kind of stuff. So I've learned a lot in the comments. As long as it's not like
Yeah.
attacking me, I'm okay with it. Like if it's criticism
Right.
or helpful comments, I like to learn from my comments and other people that, kind of are like the viewers. Like I'll learn from them too. It's not just me trying to spit out, information and all that. Like I learn a lot as well. Now, as far as the name, Reliable, it's
Yeah.
funny because like I mentioned earlier, my dad just gave me a name and I had to market that, right? Like he's like, I need business cards, I need this, I need that. So like our business name is Reliable Kitchen Services, right? He wanted to
Okay.
be straight to the point, just that's what we are. And I hated the name. I'll be honest. I
Yeah.
hated that name. I'm like, how do I market Reliable Kitchen? Because like it was always Reliable Kitchen for short. And
Yeah.
I had to figure it out because doing design and all that kind of stuff, like drawing these things, I had to make sure, because I got so many questions like, do you guys do home remodels or kitchen cabinets, or like I'm like, no, we do something completely different. So that took me a while to figure out, the design and marketing for that. But after after a while, right, thinking the name, I didn't like it, whatever. Started working out in the field, and then our customers Man, you really are reliable. I love the name. You guys are here quick, you fix things quick. You guys live up to the name. I kept hearing that over and over and over. And then I'm like, I love the name. So much
Yep.
so that I took it from my own brand too.
Yeah, that's great. It's so
Yeah.
cool. Like, yeah, I mean, you're literally, you get feedback, right? You implement that, you make it your own thing, and you run with it. And but also because that's what you like. It's easy to brand something when you're authentic to what it really is.
If we're going to be called reliable kitchen services, we better be reliable, right? So that's always been our like motto and kind of what we built or how we run our business. That's always been our thing.
Congrats, man. That's cool. That actually inspires me a lot. Like you and Dad. Yeah, it's awesome.
Or you were around plumbing, you're in the manufacturing side. Did you have any experience or anybody around you with HVAC specifically?
Yeah, so my first job when I started working was serving. So we sold HVAC and plumbing at the wholesale
Mm,
level. It was mostly majority HVAC. So that's where I really cut my teeth. So literally being the guy at the counter, taking the phone calls. I didn't know anything, right? I got all these tricks played on me from guys from the field. Again, as I called the silver beers, now we're one of them. But those silver beards and silver heads were calling and being like, "Yeah, I need a bucket of steam. Give me a price for that." And I'm like, trying to look it up frantically in the system. I'm like, wait, you can't get a bucket of steam. What am I doing? Right. Like, so that's when I started to realize that I really like the people in this industry. And again, it's, you get good ones and you get bad ones. It's not both, it's not one or the other. It's a mixture.
yeah.
But when I realized when I could help a small business be successful because of the work I was doing for them at that level, that's when it sort of clicked for me. I was like, wow, even though it's just price and availability, it's just doing those day-to-day things, you can go above and beyond that, kind of like you've done in your businesses too, at that level, and you get to learn how do they make decisions, how are they, like, again,
Hmm.
marketing themselves, how, what's important to them. And I would not change that experience for anything in my career. The ability to work at that wholesale level first part of my career led me to where I'm at today because I have an appreciation for the people that can do this work, installing it, maintaining it, taking those calls after hours, again, the challenges that they face. And even though I've never had to be the one, I say yet in a lot of these interviews, yet, because I'm still hopeful that someday that's going to be me. I don't know, but at the trajectory I've been going, I think I'm like right in the space, but probably never the wrench turner yet. But I can look at that and go, my God, like it's a skill that you have, and you're able to handle these problems. And so, I think for me, being exposed to them, and then just knowing that when I look at some of my best friends in the whole world that are still in this industry, like some of my best friends own HVAC companies.
Mm,
They call me for advice. Not on, again, I'm not the technical one, right? That's what guys like you are good for. Like if they have technical questions or online or other like resources in their network, where I help them is just almost like positivity, thinking about more life coaching, but also about like things to avoid from things I'm hearing. Like maybe you shouldn't approach it that way when you approach the customer. Try this.
mm.
Or have you ever thought about, as a small business person, trying this kind of maybe a lending opportunity? Again, I'm not, I don't sell those things in my day job, but I'm around all of it and I talk to everybody that I can go, here's some things I've heard. It's not a business secret. I'm almost like this glue to, how do they, maintain their business and keep going and keep motivated at times. So I think that's where kind of like I have felt so strongly about our industry is just knowing I'm helping them as small business people, not
Hmm.
necessarily the technical side of HVAC and plumbing. The other thing, Adrian, I wanted to talk to you about, which it might be a little bit of a left turn from our positive, conversation, but I will say, I have listened to within the last few years, and I had this great conversation with someone that was a CEO of a local, very large contracting company here near me in Philadelphia. And if you start, there's starting to be this bubbling up effect of mental health on these technicians, right? I go, it breaks my heart to hear what some of these stories are like post COVID stuff. Like people are feeling really lonely in trucks. They're feeling like they're 10 hours, 12 hours on jobs. They feel like they're underappreciated. They maybe they're also struggling, from not just like a mental health issue, but like substance abuse, like, and this is some pretty deep stuff. Like I know, like but I'm so passionate about this space that I can't ignore some of the negativity. And I go,
Yeah.
what can we do more to talk about? And I'm not a licensed therapist. I'm not any of that stuff. All I know is talking about this book and shining the light on the skilled trades. We have to be honest about some of the great things, but also what are some of the things as employers in these companies we can be doing to kind of minimize that and acknowledge it. Because my worry is that we're going to have, bad scenarios, bad situations. I mean, my God, when I tell you I'm in tears, Adrian, I'm listening to this guy. I won't name the trade association, but it's a well-known
Hmm.
national trade association. He's talking about post-COVID. He's a field manager, like, so he has a lot of technicians that he's overseeing, and he just felt like at one point there was no alternative because he was so busy with all of these people post COVID that he literally had planned to end his life in the field because he could not maintain, I guess, the momentum to finish jobs because they were so busy, they were so essential, they were so overwhelmed. And he talks, I mean, literally how he felt in those moments. And I go, what can we do about that? And what's funny is the CEO that I'm referencing that I talked to locally here about this said, we need to raise this. It is time. And boy, I don't, it's one of those odd subjects that it's worthy of bringing up because for all the things that you and I have talked about, legacy, our families, working with family, all those positive things, we have to do a better job helping others here, not just get people in, but helping those that really need help. And boy, I have felt it myself and I've heard it. And so I guess I'm kind of rambling, Andrea, but I would just ask you, have you seen that? Have you heard this? What's your perspective? And would love to see, what you think is next steps there because man, it's a to me is a big challenge to not only getting people to stay in our industry, but keeping these people around. Like it's a humanity issue.
Yeah, and I've thought about it too, and I've had people on the show that have been addicts or, they had an issue, and all that kind of ties into each other, but like they've had other issues and they say that HVAC turned their life around, right? Like having
Yeah,
this job. So there is that that can happen. But on the other side, like you said, and I think it needs to be I think businesses need to do a better job. So obviously that's why I say like when you go up to building up your business, if you want to make it bigger, that's a lot of headaches, right? That's a lot of people to manage. It's a lot of other things that come with it, stress, whatever it is. And you have to be willing to take that on or ready for it or prep for it, whatever you have to do to manage that. I personally wouldn't want to. I don't want that many people. I just, I'll keep it small, keep it simple. But it's a shame. And I think that needs to come into the conversation with, like you said, all the positives about it and stuff. That there is frustrating days, hard days, um,
yeah,
how you deal with it. And, you know, I've wanted to do that kind of episode. It's just, it hasn't worked out yet. And I'll get to it soon. But like, because
yeah,
I'm very different than most, or everybody's different. So like the way I handle things is very different. The way I look at things is very different versus like somebody who maybe, is stressed out at their job or is lonely, like you said. Like there's a lot of things that can come up with this, um, this trade, this, kind of lifestyle.
yeah,
I know guys that, are still new into the trade. They just had kids and they're feeling, depressed because, they don't see their kids or, this and that.
yeah,
There's different reasons. There's different ways that happens. It could be all the hours you have. It could be the type of work that you get, the stress level. So you got to be really careful with how you handle that. So I am my own person. I can only speak for myself. The way I handle it is, the way I do it. It's different for everybody. So I will say you need to figure that part out as well. My whole thing is I don't like to stress out about anything. I kind of let things go. And
yeah,
because it can eat at you. So like when I started in this business, doing those long days, or when my kid was born, things like that, I had to mentally be strong for that kind of stuff. And it's difficult. I get it. So, like I said, everybody's different. That is a thing. I've heard it too many times as well. So we
Yeah,
gotta look out for each other. So like what I was saying is the business also needs to implement something to kind of help out their technicians, the guys that they have in the field, or anybody working there to do something about that, to be at least helpful or acknowledge, that aspect of it. Because what I always say is like in our business, my dad's great. My dad is, the head of everything. He runs everything, but he also takes the time to check in on us. He calls us all the time. How are you doing? How was that call? Do you need help? He sends out people. If it's a tougher job, he'll send out more people. He's been really great about that. And every time, we finish a difficult job, good job, I'm proud of you, this and that, like all these, he's just been a really great boss, not only to me because I'm his son, but like to other guys that have worked for us. Like everybody loves, working for him. And that's the kind of environment and that we need, because I've heard of big businesses and you can get a good work environment, you could have a bad work environment, and
sure.
depending on that could just pile on because everybody has something going on at home, personal stuff, whatever it is. And if your work environment is toxic or bad, that's going to pile onto that person's problem. So as
Yeah,
far as like, because we run a business, so that's gonna pop out to me, like the work environment. Businesses and bosses need to be better about that as well, and then check in with your guys.
oh my gosh, what a great answer, Adrian. First of all, there's two thoughts I had when you went through that. One is, have you ever interviewed your dad on here? I feel like you need to do that. I feel like we would
That
learn so much from dad on in terms of how does he run businesses and interacts with you and the family dynamic. Oh my gosh, like what I would tune into that. I mean, that would be fantastic. That
well
was
let
my
me
first thought. I'm like, I gotta tell you
well let
that.
me let me say I had it planned out. He d-
Okay.
he had a health scare, so
Uh,
he ended up in the hospital for a little bit. He's doing much better now. He's back in the field,
okay.
and I'm
Good.
gonna plan it out to where we can do that in the
Awesome.
future.
Yeah. Dad needs to come on. That's number one. Number two, I feel like, I'm so glad that you went through all that because there's there's not enough people talking about it. So if I can encourage you in your forum to help do that, I'd want to do that too. And just based on what I do every day, I don't want to ignore, even with the kids book, which is such a nice positive thing that you still hear this stuff. You go, man, there's some deep stuff here that we really need to get out. And I would say that, the other part of it that I heard over the years too, and I'm sure again, you being in the industry for as long as you have, you've heard and seen this too. A lot of that generation prior maybe didn't do the best job acknowledging those things. And it's not just in this industry, okay? It's across all that generation
ag-
too. Um,
Acknowledging and talking about it. I forgot that part. Like talking about your day, talking about your frustrations to somebody
yeah,
is helpful, whether that's your
huge.
significant other or anybody around you that you can like vent or talk to about, maybe figure out some solutions to some problems you have. Like somebody to talk to is great. And that if you don't have anybody around you, there's no shame in therapy or anything like that. I know a lot of people that do that and it's helpful to them.
Yep. That it's so true. And then the other thing I thought too, which is a whole different topic, but it goes back to those generations, which is I think about the physical part, right? The physicalness of the job and some of those generations that have, bad knees, backs, et cetera, and they just sucked it up. They kept going. It's an inspiration, but it's not necessarily the model to follow now, right? That
Yeah.
so it's there's this balance to folks that want to come in this industry, and it's really incumbent on those next owners of businesses and the next generation to think about how do you handle mental and physical strains of these employees, especially when the workforce is limited, and especially when it's a part of the message, which also could be a value proposition, quite frankly, for the contractor that wants to hire somebody to say, yeah, you work 40 hours here. We're going to turn work down because it's more important to keep you here than to really burn you out both physically and mentally. or we're going to give you resources. Again, that costs money, time, is extra stress and strain, but that's going to keep these guys longer in the business. So it isn't just about recruiting people in, using tools like the books, right? It's also about
Yeah.
retention, it's about keeping these people. So
Yeah, I was gonna say if you take care of them, that's what will keep them around, right? Like, so we've had
yes,
employees that come through and they, I guess they want to please the business as far as like, getting us all these calls, closing all these tickets, running around out, offering to take these calls and this and that, where I get upset at them for doing too much. That like that's the way we run it, right? I don't want these guys working, so much overtime or long hour days. Like I get mad when they do that. Not because I don't want to pay them, because I can tell when they're burnt out, when they get frustrated, the work quality goes down and just mentally, because like I said, and some of these guys that work with us, they're family, so I know what's going on in their personal life, right? And I'm like, why are you putting so much on your plate? Like, tell me you can't do this job, or tell me you don't have time, or tell me you're, taking
yeah,
longer on whatever call you have, and I'll send somebody else to do the other call. Like, you don't have to take them all. So I see it firsthand. I deal with it too, like burnout, but I see it firsthand with the guys that work for us. I don't want them to get burnt out. I actually get mad at them for doing stuff like that, because I tell them I can see it in them. I can see it on them. Like, they
yeah,
look burnt out, they look tired, they look out of it, and then they got so much stuff going on at home. Like, don't be able to tell your boss, hey, I like, this is a little too much, I'm overwhelmed, and hopefully they work with you on that, because like I said, I see it all the time, and I would much rather have my technicians, with a clear thought, feeling good about their coming into work, stuff like that. And if a business can do that, take care of their technicians, the retention, that's where you get the retention. Because I've also heard, which is a shame, guys that are excited to get into the field, they come in, they get a job, they try it out, and they are ran into the ground, and then they get out immediately because they're like, this is not what I thought it would be. This is too much. They don't care about us. They just, run us and use us, and take advantage. That's a shame, because that does
yeah.
happen too.
Yeah. And by the way, not just in the contracting level, it happens all over, up and down the vertical, and in other industries. Okay. It's not
Oh
it's
yeah.
not unique to us, but still it's not that you say that's acceptable. You say, what should we do about it? And how can we be better with it?
Yeah, it's a big deal. Like I said, or you mentioned you're not a therapist, you're not anything like that. Like, I feel the same way, because I deal
Yeah.
with it. I deal with it on my own, and I'm okay with it. But I know I'm aware that I'm not depressed. I'm not anything like that. Like, I've already learned how to deal with it. But I know some other guys, struggle with it, especially the younger guys, people that
Yeah.
have kids young, or they have kids that, they their kids are born when they're in this trade, and then they have a whole other, issues going on. So I understand that part.
No, thanks for sharing. That's powerful stuff, Adrian. That's cool.
I appreciate it. Oh, the other thing I was going to say is, like, if you're going to be in this kind of work, but I feel like this is for anything, like, you need to have a way to get your mind off of work. You need to have hobbies. That's always a question to have. Like, what
Oh,
are
yeah.
the hobbies that people have? Because, and I had a good conversation with Zach not too long ago, quality HVAC, and
Okay.
we've had the same kind of thoughts recently. It's like, I ask this question a lot, like, what is your hobby? And a lot of people like to say, my family, my time with my kids. I'm like, that's great, but what do you do for you? And he made the same point. He's like, no, you need something for yourself too. Like, I'm sure you need, either a hobby or an interest or something that you can get your mind off of work. And
Sure.
kids are great. Kids, but mine, sometimes they drive me nuts. Like, it's just, it is what it is, right? And I've always been into sports and other things like that. Do you have any hobbies? Because I think are you a musician?
Yeah, Adrian, I do. So I have played music since I've been 15. Drums. So I'm a drum set player. at one point in my life, I said that was going to be where I'm going to put all my energy. But like a lot of bands and stuff, it's like, oh, there's a problem, and the singer leaves, and the guitar player does this, and okay. So fast forward to now, playing daily is something I do. I mean, it's every morning. I know it's crazy. You're like, wait, you play drums? Yeah, my garage with electronic kit, so I get to
Does
play
it
there.
does it feel therapeutic?
Always. Yeah, always.
Exactly.
I wish I could do more of it in those moments, but I know if I have to do just enough. And then there's a physicalness to it, but there's also this sense of accomplishment, when you try to like work on something, or maybe you're working on a part in a song. And so for me, music has always been huge. I communicate and feel things through music, and all kinds of styles, jazz to heavy metal to all of it. And but I love music myself. I've always said that if the HVAC and plumbing industry didn't keep me and or keep me so latched into the business, I'd probably be in the music industry of some sort, or drumming manufacturing or something, because it's a lot of the same skills over there, but just different industry and players. But
Hmm.
I love that the creative aspect too. So I've been blessed with being able to write original music, to playing cover music and projects, to most recently writing my own original music with me singing, and like it's fun.
Hmm.
It's hard to fit in, right, because it is truly a hobby. But I think there was this time in my life where it just kind of clicked, and I'm like, okay, so my day job in the industry is HVC and plumbing. That's where I make money, and that's what we focus on. But if I want to create or do things, I'm not trying to make money at music, and I just play to play. And yes, do I make some music? Sure, I play a cover band gig here now and again, and it's fun. But I don't strive to make that as a replacement or to supplement my day to day, right? Like, but it goes back to being fulfilled and happy and being known. Like it's one of these things where, for me, I feel like there's this, you can almost like eulogize yourself a bit, which is, when you're reading off who was Ryan at the end, it's like Ryan was this, this, and this, and I know one of them will be he played music and he was a drummer, and that's important to me, a little bit, not because I've done all the branding and I've had like put a lot of energy of focus in it. It's because people could just sense how much I love doing that, right? It's the same thing with this business, right, and writing books and the industry and being a marketer in it, right? It's going to be a comma in that eulogy. It's like he was in this industry and he also played music and drums,
Yeah.
and that's what's cool. So, but yes, I appreciate you asking me. What about you? I've never asked, Adrian. What do you do for pleasure?
So I mean that's really cool. I kind of stumbled upon that when I was looking up or looking into this episode, and
Yeah,
I have a lot of family members that are into music. So really quick, my brother, because this came up I think yesterday, he my youngest brother works with us, right? So he's been really good. He likes it and all that. So that was really cool to see him get into the business. He does HVAC, right? He plays bass and he used to be in a band and all that. So he still
cool.
plays it. He has like all these guitars and stuff. And he does like woodwork kind of work now. Like he builds
Sure.
things like this. He is the epitome of like somebody that should be in this trade because he's has so many skills, right? Like it's just something like in him that he does. So
Yeah,
that's really cool. And I have another brother that his hobby was photography, and I kind of pick his brain when I need to learn something on Photoshop, things like that. So, I lean on them for certain things. Myself, growing up, I was always into sports. I had that, like you said, putting all my energy into basketball because that's what I thought I was gonna do when I was
yeah,
older. And my parents were like, "You need to do something else. You need to figure out something." So, the trades came later on, but I was always into sports, and I watch a lot of it still to this day to kind of like unwind and stuff. But
sure,
I've always been intrigued by taking apart things and putting them back together, which made a lot more sense now that I'm doing this for a living, like the HVAC stuff. But
uh,
um, a hobby of mine was fixing electronics. So I had like a side hustle for a good while, fixing iPhones and iPads and laptops and all that kind of stuff, just because I was always intrigued by, what is inside of these things, how do you take them apart? How do you fix them? And that turned into like a whole little business that I had for a good while. Like right before and then the first couple of years in the HVAC trade, I had a repair mobile phone repair type of deal.
Okay. That's really
So
cool. Okay, so
sports
can I
and
ask you one last
electronics.
question before? Yeah, I got one question. You're a basketball fan. What do you think of the AD trade, right, with Luca, right? And also in Texas. I mean, right?
Okay, so that's a whole other thing. I grew up obviously with the Michael Jordan era, and that was always my favorite player. My dad, on the other hand, was a huge, huge Laker fan, right?
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah.
he, I think he liked Michael Jordan, but like he always favored Magic Johnson and all those guys over there on the Lakers. And so after Jordan retired, I was like, what am I gonna like? Who do I watch? So I got into the Lakers as well. So I've been a Laker fan since the early no late since the late '90s, right when they had that huge run, that dynasty run. So that's what I'm into. I'm into the Lakers. I think I was watching the game last night, and all of a sudden I checked later, and I thought it was fake. I was
Yeah.
like, what is going on? Um, I will say
Yeah.
AD was playing really good. He was not injured until recently. He had been injury free for a good while, so I felt really good about him. But the one player that I would always watch, other than the Lakers, like I would always try to catch, was Luca. So I'm kind of excited. A little sad to see AD leave, but I'm excited for that one. That's a
That's
huge
yeah.
shakeup.
It is. I mean, my gosh, it shook the whole world here. I mean, no one saw it coming. It was a pocket deal that was really held close to the chest. It sounds like, and man, it's exciting if you're a basketball fan at all. I too was watching the game last night. I fell asleep right away, but I was trying to watch that game. It was on the
Yeah,
Knicks versus Lakers. But yeah, to see that to that happen and go down is
we'll
crazy,
see.
but exciting.
We'll see. I thought Luca for sure was a franchise guy for them. And
Right.
I'm not the only team I hate because of those early Laker um runs was the Spurs. I was never a fan of
Oh,
the
sure.
Spurs. They were a big
Yeah.
rival, even though I'm in Texas. It was a big rival, and I've been a big fan of them lately though because of Wemby. Right, that dude is
Sure.
just
Yeah.
crazy, crazy good. Does everything. So I'm excited because I've been a basketball fan for a long time. I stopped watching for a while just because it didn't interest me too much. But lately, these past couple of years, I've been really back into it, and that's something that and my dad was into professional wrestling. Like that's his thing.
Okay.
So
That's good.
try to get some TV time when I can to watch either one of those, like basketball, like sports in general.
That's great. No, that's
Yeah.
cool. Well, now I know all about Adrian and Dad and the family after this. It's like it's fantastic.
Yeah, man. Really quick, next up trades. What is that? If you can explain that really quick.
Absolutely. No, first of all, thank you so much for having me on and allowing me to kind of talk a little bit about all over the place, which I love this style.
Yeah,
It
it
was
was a
very
great conversation.
Yeah, it was I got a chance to interview you a little bit, which is, maybe unexpected, but you did great. um, but no, like Next Up Trades is the book series around promoting HVAC and plumbing to children. And it's a rhyming children's series. It's available on Amazon, along with an ebook. The really cool thing I'll mention about the air conditioning one are called The Air Came to a Stop. That's the name of the book. The second one in the series. It's actually sponsored by ACA, so the Air Conditioning Contractors of
Oh yeah.
America, based in the DC area. Fantastic group if your listeners don't know them. Um, and they've been a really good partner for this project to help promote it and get it out there. But not only that, and this is probably of interest to you and maybe your listeners too, is the book's available in Spanish. So they actually said, you know what?
Yeah,
Not
that's
only
right.
has yeah, so America's, linguistic changes, obviously the last several decades has been moving towards Spanish, but also in our industry. I mean, my gosh, between HVAC techs and plumbers, there are more and more people that either are bilingual or, their first language is Spanish. And so they made the call to say, you know what, let's do this book in Spanish. I've had such great remarks about the book in Spanish. It's an untapped market there, right? Telling this story to Spanish speaking families. And so that part has been fantastic. And I'll be honest, I don't know much Spanish, Adrian, don't kill me, but I do my best. But I just see that it's definitely something that was necessary, and I was happy to sort of deliver that. But the Next Up Trade series really is about promoting you guys as technicians, being noble, necessary, and appreciated when this work is done. As we mentioned at the top, it's all about vocabulary, insertion of words,
Yeah.
and this plot line being, how do we get the technicians seen as a positive thing in homes and businesses, instead of maybe what is seen as, from either not knowing about this skill, this business, to maybe even a negative in some ways. So that was really my way to do that. Passion project really doesn't say enough about why I did it. I did it because I know it can make a difference. I know people can pick this up, run with it, use it both for outreach activities for contractors and companies. If you're trying to recruit, to save, giving it to their own children or grandkids or other things. That really is why we did this, to just share that good news about the industry in there. And as I mentioned at the top, but also to highlight that I too have children, and they are a pain at times, and they cause problems. And that's who caused these problems in this book,
Yep.
and having technicians fix them that they caused.
It's cool that my son tells people like my dad fixes air conditioners, like, and then he's
Yes.
like, "Oh, did you?" Like he'll ask me about work or about something, or if I work on something around the house, he's like, "Oh, you fixed that?" He's like, "Oh, cool." Like he gets, it's nice to hear that kind of stuff from my kids. So I'm very excited, for this book series, and the whole Spanish thing. Uh, I'm glad that you brought that up because I kind of forgot about that. But even Craig Migliaccio with his book has done a Spanish version now too. So
Yes.
like you said, that's just something, an untapped market. And funny enough, like where I'm at, in South Texas, when I go like to our downtown area and there's these little shops that we go to and stuff like that, they might be like Asian shops, people of that
Yep.
descent.
Yep.
They don't even bother learning English when they get here. They learn Spanish first. So
Spanish.
that has thrown me off. They either know Chinese or Spanish, no English. So that's a whole other thing. It just made me realize how prominent Spanish is in my area, but in this country as well. So it's cool to see you kind of tap into that.
Happy to engage with anyone on the topic. Again, as you can see, I'm passionate about skilled trades. That's really where this is born from, and hopefully, this book helps really answer that existential question. Like, what does my parent do? How what
Oh
is it
yeah,
that they can help with? Right. That's what this book can help do for anyone in this industry, to explain that to your children, but also get them involved with the words in a way that's maybe a little less aggressive, or in a way that's entertaining.
that's awesome. That is something like my kids, being able to tell them what I do and then finally, having them understand that it's been great, like to see that. So it's really cool. And like I said, they've already taken a peek at the books. They've taken them from me. So they enjoyed them.
I love that. Well, thank you
Uh,
so much for having me, Adrian. I appreciate this so
yeah,
much.
man. So I'm excited to hear, what else you have going on later on. Would love to see, more of these books. I did also talk to, Plumber Page because she was doing books too. And it's really
Absolutely.
cool to see people tapping into this type of thing because now I can hand these off to my kids and be like, here, read something about the trades.
Yeah. Hey, quick shout out to Plumber Page, my fellow Pennsylvanian, right? So her and I are very close, both geography. She's only about an hour away, and
Mm,
also with this whole movement, right? So she's been, my gosh, if the folks listening haven't heard about Plumber Page and what she's doing for even a generation younger, sounds like Adrian, than you and I, like
oh yeah,
there's a really cool movement she's putting out there now as well, online. And again, I love the social media influencer space too, because I think they're really tapping into some things there that are powerful. But we all need to work together. That's one of my biggest complaints, is that it's so fragmented. You know, to me, Plumber's not competition. She's my ally, right? It's like
yeah.
that's exactly what we need, is we band together here. And promoting what's so great about why we love this industry. So Plumber
Even
Page is great.
even even as a business, I've try to tell people like you network, right? So that's a big tip now that I give is like, once we started networking with our competition, right? Like you would always see them as competition. They can help you out. So I've had help from other contractors. I've had help with plumbers and electricians that we get to know and kind of give each other work. There's always a shouldn't be competition. Like there's work for everybody, and we can all work together. And the whole social media thing is just great to see right now because we're making it cool to be a tradesperson, and I hope that gets out to more people. That's always been my thing. I want to see the next people coming up. At some point, I want to do some sort of apprentice program where I can just bring in people, train them, and they can stay or they can go. That's one of my goals there.
That's great. Well, I can't wait to see what you do there as well. You're looking at my books, and I can't wait to see what you do and Dad does. So exciting
Yeah,
stuff. Yeah.
I appreciate it, man. So thanks for taking the time to sit down here. But like I said, great conversation. Loved doing this episode, and thanks again.
No, thank you. Have a good rest of your day.
Yeah, everybody watching and listening, I appreciate you all for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next time.